Good morning. Pardon me for breaking the silence again. This is the last day of our retreat together. Let us continue right up to the end of the retreat to give ourselves to the practice. I'd like to thank again all of you for being here and bringing this about, making this happen. We are doing this together. Bernhard, as the organizer, has put in great energy and effort so that it could run smoothly. And Tobias has been a fine jiki leading the Zazen. And all of us in our own way doing what needs to be done. It's been a joy and a pleasure to practice together. I brought up the theme of through great doubt, through great contentment. And I mentioned we've all touched this contentment using the example of Gautama Buddha, his own life, and sitting under the rose apple tree. But we've all sat under our rose apple tree, listening to music, getting lost in the woods, watching a sunset, being with the one you love. We're not talking about something far away or esoteric. We've all touched it. Zazen is the time to fully get back in touch, not just touch it, but we might say drown in it in a very good way. We've also all touched this great doubt. Anyone who has lived fully, who has, for example, loved and lost, who has had a broken heart, who has had to face crises, great difficulties in our life, well, it's very difficult to run away from the great doubt then, isn't it? The point, of course, is that it's always there. It's always there. You don't need an earthquake or a tsunami to see that the ground under your feet is not as stable as you think it is or you would like it to be. Oh, we've all touched this contentment, and we've all touched this doubt. The question is, which is the way for you to go? And then go all the way, all the way. Great doubt in itself is not enough. It must come to its own culmination, conclusion. It must dissolve. Great contentment is also a way. Yes, if that is your way, take it, but all the way until that contentment is seen for what it is. It's not a mere state, a state of mind, happiness, joy, something like that. It is the ground of such. In genuine contentment, life itself is settled. Death itself is settled. Otherwise, it's not genuine contentment. All you need to do is take it all the way, and you have everything you need already. Otherwise, you know what happens. You go around and around in your head. Many of the questions raised during this retreat were the result of discursive thought. They were, in a sense, pointless. And yet they were raised, and we tried together our best to offer some help. I've been speaking about the life of Buddha and trying to show how our practice, our struggle, our awakening, and what happens after that are all, in a sense, illustrated if we look carefully at the life of Gautama Buddha. It's all there. But most important, we're not just talking about Gautama Buddha and his life. We're talking about our life. Our life. There's a section in the Pali Suttas called Questions Not Tending to Edification. Edification means to clarify, to make clear. Questions that don't tend to provide clarity, give clarity. Probably many of you know it's very famous, but there was a disciple under Gautama Buddha who was sitting in meditation, and as it says in the suttas, it occurred to him that Gautama Buddha, his teacher, had never explained to him some questions that he had. For example, is the world finite or is the world infinite? Is the world eternal or is it only temporal in time? Is there an absolute being, originator, first cause, or not? And is there an eternal self or not? This person sitting in meditation said, Gautama Buddha has not explained to me any of those questions. We might call them philosophical or even metaphysical questions. I am going to go to Gautama Buddha and ask him to answer these questions. And if he does not answer them, I will leave. I will stop being a student, a disciple under Gautama Buddha. So he goes to Gautama Buddha, and of course in the suttas it's exactly repeated over and over again, partly to help us remember it. But he says, I was sitting in meditation and the thought occurred to me, is there eternal or not, temporal or not? And if you answer those questions, I will stay and practice with you. If you don't, I will leave. Well, this is one of the times that Gautama Buddha seems to get a little pissed. He gets a little angry. He actually says in the English translation, foolish fellow, did I ever say that I would answer whether the world is eternal or not? No, you didn't. Did I ever say that there is an absolute being or not? Did I ever? And all of these questions. And the practitioner, the disciple, has to honestly say, no, you never did say you would answer those questions. And then Gautama Buddha says, very kindly for this person, why did I not say that I would answer those questions? Because it is useless, it is worthless, it does not provide true contentment, true ease. It does not resolve, if we put it in today's language, the one great matter of life and death. What do I teach? I teach there is dukkha, the first noble truth. That is dis-ease, the fact of dis-ease. I teach the fact of tanha, that the cause, the origin of all of our dis-ease is in tanha, craving, the craving to be. What else do I teach? I teach that there is a way to put an end to all of that, to cut off the root of craving, which is the end of all dis-ease, the third noble truth. I also teach the way to do this, the Eightfold Noble Path, the fourth noble. This is the Four Noble Truths. then Gautama Buddha really brings it home. He says, you are like someone who has been shot with a poisoned arrow. You understand? Shot with a poisoned arrow. You're going to die very soon. The poison, I think he says, in the side. You are shot by a poison-tipped arrow. And you come to me and you say, please remove this arrow. The Four Noble Truths right here. Please remove the source of my suffering. But wait, first I want to know who shot that arrow. And I want to know what kind of wood is this arrow made from. And I want to know which tribe was the person that shot it. You would be dead before you found the answer to any of those questions. It's clear. Again, this is not Zen. This is very basic Buddhism. Consider well in the depths of your practice, what are you doing? The one and only thing is to remove that arrow of yourself and of others. Buddhism is often spoken of as agnostic. It neither speaks of a God or not. Is there a God? It doesn't matter. Is there dis-ease? Look into yourself and see. That's all. If there's a God or not, well, in a sense, that's a very important spiritual, theological question. But that in itself doesn't remove the arrow. Buddhism in that way is very practical, and so is Zen. Its interest is to remove the arrow, not to discuss the kind of wood that it was made of. So far, so good? Have we cleared up a couple lifetimes worth of meaningless questions? Good. Now we can get down to the real work. Hakuin, Japanese Zen master, died a little over 250 years ago. He speaks this way. I am now over 70 years old, but my hearing and my sight improves with each year. I am in better health than when I was in my 20s and 30s. Another place he says, I am over 70. My vital energy is 10 times as great as when I was in my 30s and 40s. I never feel I must lie down to rest. I have no difficulty in refraining from sleep for 2, 3, or even 7 days. Elsewhere he says, what is my fatigue, my tiredness, compared with the great hunger of my disciples? We've all touched this as well. We've all been in a situation, perhaps partying all night at college or falling in love, where you can stay up all night and not even yawn, not even be the least bit tired. It can be really tough in a session, though, can't it? But how many of us have partied all night in college? You manage to stay up all night then, don't you? Interesting, But you see what he's saying. He's saying something we've all touched. There are times when there seems to be no limit. That energy just flows and flows. And we feel like we can touch the sky. We all know this. He was in his 70s, though. He said his sight and his hearing is even better. I don't know. It's my second pair of glasses here. But that's what he says. At any rate, leaving aside the details, remember also that in his 20s and early 30s, he was very sick. He was very sick. But still, what he says is quite extraordinary, and yet we've all touched it. We've all touched it. But I only bring this up because I want to return to Gautama Buddha. How about him at the end of his life? What did he say? Compare this with what Hakuin says. Huh? This is mostly from the Sutra of the Great Decease, or Death, the Great Death, the Mahaparinibbana Sutta, not the Mahaparinirvana Sutra, which is the Sanskrit version and is quite different. Huh? This is the Pali, earlier version. How does Gautama Buddha speak of himself as he's getting old? We heard about when he's struggling, when he awakened. Huh? But here he is at the end of his life. How does he speak? He speaks like this. I am tired, Ananda. I am weary. Ananda was his attendant. Huh? I am thirsty. Please bring me some water to drink. I am like an old cart. You know, a cart? You know, before we had cars. An old cart that can only be kept going with repairs. Again, quoting Gautama Buddha. That's the way it is. When young, one is subject to aging. When healthy, subject to illness. When alive, subject to death. The complexion, skin color, the complexion is no longer so clear and bright. The limbs, arms and legs, are flabby and wrinkled. Anybody can relate to this? The back bent forward. Gautama Buddha himself. Yeah, as we get old, the back tends to be bent forward. There is a discernible, a noticeable change in the faculties, the eye, the ear, the nose, the tongue, and the body. Yes. He's not saying like Hakuin, even better than in my 20s. He's saying, hey, I'm going downhill. What Hakuin says is profound. What Gautama Buddha says is even more profound. Again, continuing, Gautama Buddha speaking about himself at the end of his life. Now I am frail, fragile, old, aged, far gone in years. This is my 80th year, and my life is spent. Done. Again, the same image. Even as an old cart is held together with much difficulty, so my body is kept going only with supports. Only when in formless concentration, in deep samadhi or dhyana, is this body comfortable. Therefore, the next is very famous. You've heard it before. Therefore, be islands unto yourselves, refuges, like the three refuges. Refuges unto yourselves. Seek no external refuge. With the Dhamma, Sanskrit dharma, the truth, as your island, the Dhamma as your refuge. Seek no other refuge. I prefer Gautama Buddha to Hakuin here. Hakuin's okay, but he was still young, only in his 70s. Consider well in the depths of your practice. Huh? Where are you trying to get to? Superman, Superwoman, huh? The point is, there's no suffering. He's not suffering. He's old, he's frail, his back is bent, he can only be kept going with much support. Yeah. But the ego self suffers even when it's in the best health, doesn't it? Huh? Consider well. What is it to truly live? And what is it to truly die? Whether we're 20, 50. I turned 70 this year, so I figured it was about time to use this quote. Maybe I'll be around for the 80th, we'll see. We should return to one other experience of the historical Buddha, Shakyamuni Gautama. After he awakened, what did he do? Again, this is in the Pali Suttas. After he awakened, sitting under the Bodhi tree, boom, done. As it's called, Anyuttara Samyak Sambodhi. Complete, unexcelled, complete, perfect awakening. Boom, done. Then what did he do? So, what did Gautama Buddha do after he got awakened? Yes?
He asks for food and drinking.
No, that was before the awakening. Before the awakening, it's very famous. It's an important point. He did ask for food, and he bathed in the river. And this was very important, because that's what the 5 fellow ascetics that he was with, they saw him do that. And they thought, He is indulging. We were supposed to be beyond that. We're practicing asceticism now. So they left him. But after he awakened, what did he do? Set up shop?
He wanted to be private and to leave, to be alone
and do what?
He continued.
Well, he was going to die. That's what he was going to do. It says in the Pali Suttas, done what must be done. This is the end of dukkha, of suffering, of dis-ease. There is no more for this world. There is no more being, usually translated as becoming, but it also means being. There is no more being for this world. So he was just going to sit and pass away.
So I would say he decided to care for other people.
That's what we're coming to, but at first he did not. At first he did not. This is very important, please. Again, I'm not just talking about the old man 2,500 years ago. I'm talking about us.
He said nobody would understand this, so...
Yeah.
How?
What he did was he sat and he was just going to pass away. It's done. There's nothing more to do. It's done. Bye-bye. But of course, this is 2,500 years ago in India. Are they trying to bring it into the pantheon of Hinduism? Well, we're not sure what the sutras are doing here. But what it says is the devas came down because they could see that he was awakened. And they said, please consider teaching others. And he says, this is in the Pali Suttas, it would be troublesome for me. I'm serious. Look at the Pali Sutras. It would be toilsome. It would be troublesome. The mass of beings are so covered in dust and delusion that it would be waste. This is a difficult path, not for the lazy, not for the easygoing. It would all be in vain, useless. So, in the Pali Suttas it says, Gautama tended toward inactivity. There's nothing to do. This is India, so they asked him 3 times. See whether you're serious or not. But at this point, the devas then raise this image of the lotus flower. This is where the image comes from. But some beings are like the lotus flower, almost at the surface of the water. I know it's real dirty down there, you're right, delusions and all that, mired in desires. But out of that mud comes this pure lotus, and once it can reach the surface, it's the most beautiful thing. So, at least for those people close to the surface, you could help them. And finally, after 3 times, he decides to, as we say, come down the mountain of his awakening to serve others. But once again, it's very clearly stated in the Pali Suttas, he tended toward hesitation, he tended toward inactivity, not doing anything. And the subsection is called the Great Hesitation. The Great Hesitation. Only then does he decide to come down the mountain and share what he knows. Was his awakening complete when he awakened? Or was his awakening complete only when he came down the mountain? What is the sutta trying to tell us?
It's complete and he moves.
Yeah, I mean, if it's really complete, it can work freely. This is something that Mahayana Buddhism really emphasizes. But again, we're not talking about Gautama Buddha or Mahayana Buddhism. We're talking about our practice here and now. To get to that point where there can be no doubt. There can be no doubt. Until there's nothing more to do. Then open your eye and see what there is to do. That work is endless. As I mentioned before, what is it that needs to be thoroughly seen through, and what is it that continues forever? You confuse the two, you're lost. Perhaps the Pali Suttas put it this way to help make that point. They make it so clear, such a division. It's done. I'm out of here. There's nothing more to do. Yes, for you, perhaps. But what about for others? But what about for others? And he actually says, it would be troublesome, it would be toilsome, because they're so full of delusion, it would be worthless, it would be pointless. This is a difficult path. Not for the lazy. And yet we have a golden opportunity. A whole week here practicing like this together with a group of like-minded people. Under our Bodhi tree. But again, for yourself, consider deeply. If you've had a really deep experience, what does it put an end to? And what does it open up? Be clear. Be clear. Keep that eye open.